Okay. Black Panther 2. This is just loading up. Just give it a second. Black Panther 2. Man, it's crazy. Like, who would have thought that we would have been here like all these years ago, man? Black Panther 2. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Circle Club show. I am here with this esteemed genius guest, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist, Mr. Corey of What's Next. What's up, my man?
I'm good, dude. I'm good. How you doing? How's it been?
Great. So let's just jump into it. We're talking Black Panther 2 today. We're talking theories about the plot. We're talking about, do we think Black Panther should be replaced? Who will replace him? And then just the future of this character and Phase 5 going forward with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So let's jump into it, man. So what are your theories about the plot? We're hearing all these rumors about Neymar and other people, Ironheart. Like, what's going on?
So I think in general, they're going to stick to, I think, what they originally probably wanted to do, even if Chadwick Boseman was alive, is I think what they had done at the end of Black Panther 1 is they really opened up their borders, right? They made themselves known to the world and who they really, truly are, right? They're not this third world country who can't really do anything like everybody in the world had thought this whole time, right? They're, in theory, the biggest power country in the world, right? I would argue that they're even stronger than America, given the vibranium technology that they have, right? So I think because of this, it leaves them open to a larger threat. And a lot of us think it's gonna be Atlantis and Namor, right?
Yes.
And I think that's just been the common consensus. And I think a lot of it is overlooked on the fact that it's going to be because they've made themselves known, right? And I think bringing in something like Atlantis would be a nice contrast to that. Because it's another kind of unknown civilization lifting up, right? So now you got these two dominant forces kind of almost claiming for power at this point. And I think that would make a very interesting plot given the loss of Black Panther.
Now, what do you have to say about, people who are saying and claiming that Neymar is an anti-hero, villain? Like, which route do you think they should go? Which route do you think they will go? Give us some of your thoughts there.
I feel like we got a lot of heroes. I think especially now with the Disney Plus shows, you're starting to see some of those. Like, you're gonna get into the Miss Marvels. You're gonna have those spunky characters who really are about that superhero life. I think something that we don't want to lose sight of and things that we are looking forward to is like something like Deadpool coming into the MCU now, right? Having a little different of an edge and taste. That's what we like about the upcoming Blade project, things like that, Moon Knight, right? That edge to it. So I really want an anti-hero. I want somebody that I know is truly not bad. It's almost like Civil War in the sense of there's going to be this conflict between heroes, but at the end of the day, when there's that bigger entity coming into play, whether it be Doom, Kang, whoever it might be, right? He is going to be behind those heroes at the end of the day. But I think not having conflict between heroes is not realistic in the world, and that's what we always say a lot of times. Right, the MCU is the most realistic universe at the end.
Of the day. It's this like fictional but realistic version of superheroes of like what they would be like if they existed in our world. So one of the things I was reading, someone was saying, they asked, why would Neymar be an enemy of Wakanda? So this is sort of a relatively new thing in the comics, right? Where it begins in this 12-issue crossover event, Avengers versus X-Men. And in that, we see this fraction of the Phoenix Force possess Neymar. And then from there, as the heroes, the Avengers are hiding in the African nation of Wakanda. They regroup, and Neymar decides to flood the whole thing, which is going to kill some Wakandans, create some tension. And we've seen in the past too with Black Panther's character where, he kind of goes on this like revenge quest. I think the Black Panther that we know kind of learned from that, which is why he didn't really go after Captain America and Bucky, because he was kind of like, you know what, like I can't hold on to this anger. So I don't think they'll go that route. However, I think there's going to be some sort of catalyst or instigator to create this tension between these two. My prediction about this, and I'll get into this more later, is I think there's going to be some third party, Dr. Doom, someone come in to kind of force Neymar. And I think what we're seeing too is if they're going to create this character between this like Central America thing, this Africa thing, right? There may be sort of this like rivalry or between the countries, or like, wow, like now Wakanda's getting all these resources, but South America is kind of being forgotten. I think those are some of my potential theories, but what are some of yours about why Neymar might become a villain?
Yeah, I think you're right in the sense there might be some I really look at it as a final domino that kicks over, that really leads to another conflict. But I think they're going to give a backstory behind how this is something that had been there in the past, right? Like we've talked about, Wakanda's been around for centuries, even before the Egyptian culture, right? That you see in Moon Knight, right? So there could be a prior conflict that they shed light on that maybe caused Atlantis to fall into the ocean, right? And to my point before, where you haven't really known, nobody's really known about Wakanda, right? And they've been very hidden. Maybe that's why Atlantis or Namor hasn't retaliated, right? Because they really haven't been able to find it. It's been secretive. Only Wakandans know where it is. So leaving it open now and having maybe some little thing that just sparks the flame again. To Namor, because obviously probably Namor hasn't been around from centuries ago. So something's got to light his flame, but I think Wakanda's borders being open now and some prior conflict in history there is going to lead to this. And I think what ultimately could be a great play is using Namor as the tool to kill off T'Challa some way, somehow in this, that really instigates that war to begin, right? And now you can start bringing in somebody like the Panther goddess Bast and taking elements from Moon Knight, where the heart herb that Killmonger got rid of. This is where you can now give somebody the powers of Black Panther as an avatar, through Moon Knight. And I think that would be the easiest way and most interesting way, truthfully, to land the unfortunate circumstance of Chadwick Boseman.
And make sure you guys check out What's Next to get more of our deep dive into some of the conversations we had about the importance and the key takeaways of Moon Knight, because I think, Corey, you hit the nail on the coffin with that. One of the biggest takeaways from Moon Knight was that now we have these avatars, which is another way for someone to become a hero rather than being an Inhuman or, getting bitten by a spider or something like that. So I 1,000% agree there. And that also helps that plot hole of, there's no more ancestral herb or whatever the flower is. And then we saw too in this new Thor trailer that the goddess Bast is going to be in this next film. So that also will play a big role into that as well. I think to your point as well, Wakanda has been hidden this whole time, right? So now we're going to start to see how the country, how the world reacts to that. I mean, honestly, even America maybe retaliates to that because they think that it's sort of like we saw in What If, right? Like where it's like, oh, they have all this power and this weapons and we need our own weapons. So I think we're all kind of pointing our head and looking at Neymar. But from my perspective, I think that Neymar may potentially end up helping the Wakandans somehow. I think that, and to your point, we do have a lot of heroes and not a lot of villains. But what I will say is this, as we're starting to phase out characters, maybe Thor's gone next, we're going to need to start to replace these with some prominent figures and people that we love. And, what other way to make Neymar likable and invite him to the conversation, to the table, or as Dr. Strange might say, the lunchbox, than having him help out the Wakandans. And so that being said, I do agree. But in the back of my head, I am wondering, is there going to be some sort of twist here? And with Disney, there's always some sort of twist, right? So I think that's what we can sort of expect to happen there. Before we move on, I wanted to talk a little bit about Dominique Thorne's Ironheart. She's showing up. So there's been rumors about her showing up. We think this is going to be her first appearance. We don't know how big, small, whatever it's going to be. What are your thoughts on that?
I think there has to be some type of connection there, right? I really don't want to lean just on the fact that this new character is a genius and that's why Shuri reaches out, right? I would like there to be some low key connection to Wakanda there, and her being like a long time ancestor, right? Of a Wakandan, right? Yeah. And her just finding out about it, right? And it being kind of like one of those like almost like Miss Marvel types where she's so excited.
She takes a 23andMe test,
right? Because that would be hilarious. Honestly, that'd be a great promotional plug for 23andMe.
That funds the next 5 films.
Honestly, if we can get more funding to just keep getting stuff, I'm down for it.
Yeah.
So. Anyways, so to that point, right, I think that would be a cool way of like getting her involved. I could see her being like that, kind of like in real life. A lot of people looked up to Black Panther, the T'Challa character, and why they really didn't want to get Chadwick Boseman replaced is because they liked it. But some people on the other side of the aisle too are saying, no, we want our Black Panther, right? Like this, we finally got our first superheroes. Someone like Ironheart looking up to Black Panther, right? Being that Black superhero, I could see her wanting to make that connection with Wakandans, right? And I think going that road, like a Miss Marvel type, and having that influence would make a lot of sense in why she gets injected into this movie at the time.
I think
they need to establish that character first. I don't really want her intro to come from Black Panther necessarily itself.
Yeah, I think that there might be a little bit too much going on to have her a central part of the plot, but unless that ultimately is what they do, then I would think maybe they take less of the Neymar or Dr. Doom stuff potentially. But yeah, I think naturally it's a fit to have her be best friends with Shuri. They both work out. She looks up to the brother. Maybe she even has a crush on him, right? Like a little like cutesy crush. And Shuri's just like, oh, like that's my brother, man. Don't do that. You know, because like that's kind of that classic like teen girl thing, right?
Yeah.
But to your point, yeah, I think it would be better to have her have this deeper connection. And she's sort of like this Iron Man replacement, and like no one can replace Iron Man, obviously, right? But like it's sort of like that next character who uses their brilliance to like create inventions and technology to better help the Avengers. But yeah, I think that's one of the most exciting components of this that no one's talking a ton about. I think Ironheart showing up, I think that can really, really make a big difference. Now, you mentioned the replacement of Black Panther. What do you think will happen with the Black Panther replacement? Do you think they will replace him? Do you think they should replace him? What are your thoughts there?
You know, I'm on a mixed feeling here, right? Like I really do want another Black Panther because the Black Panther character itself is one of my favorite characters, probably easily a top 5 character to me, right? I think it's just aesthetically a really cool character.
It looks so cool.
Fights, just everything, the tie-ins with Wakanda, like it's just also a cool nation in of itself. I think all the elements of what Black Panther brings to the table is too important and not told enough on screen to let it go, right? Unfortunately, right, I love Chadwick Boseman, and this is the caveat is I really do not believe anybody can live up to his portrayal. But this comes back to expectations, right? I think we need to take a step back and there's always give and take, right? I would rather take a maybe 80% performance of what Chadwick Boseman's giving to get more Black Panther. And I think an easy way to do that too is just by sticking with characters you already have, right? Like I said, sticking to my theory, and I think why my theory is a little bit the way it is I think you can use that avatar to imbue somebody like an M'Baku, who's kind of earned that right. I think he stood beside T'Challa when Killmonger took over, and even his friends left him. He stood there during Infinity War, right? He's been almost like that first lieutenant to T'Challa. And I think him challenging T'Challa too shows that he wanted that throne, right?
Yes.
I think he took a step back and understood that it wasn't his, and that humbling is what helped push him into that hero role. But seeing somebody like him, I could see him having that background in a tough time to step up, right? Because he was there with him. And I think in moments like this where you lose somebody, like a JFK per se in real life, you look at that vice president as somebody who is kind of almost like that easy, smoother transition because it's somebody who understands how T'Challa wanted things to be done. I think he'll be able to pull it off. Yeah,
and I think you just convinced me a little bit too, bro, because like I've been a big proponent. I think they should replace him. But I've been kind of seeing it from this perspective of like you recast. But I do agree. I think you kind of, there's something about Chadwick Boseman, right? Sort of like this Will Smith thing, maybe not after the Oscars, but like there's this like charisma, this like everyone loves you in Hollywood sort of thing, and like that smile he's got. And so that in itself made him so perfect for the role. Like when like Shuri like flipped him and like she's laughing, like he's like, you better not be recording this. Like it's just so perfect, like he felt like the perfect guy for the role. So
to add to that, it's like it's not even just him in live action, right? You feel that voice of Chadwick Boseman in the What If series, and like watching that What If series. And if any of you who have watched it know, Black Panther makes the most appearances in that series.
Yeah,
hearing his voice in that role embodies, you can see him playing it, right? Even though it's an animated character, you feel it as Chadwick Boseman. And so, to not cut you off, I'm sorry, but to add to your point there.
Yeah. And so that adds to the whole like weight of it, where it's like you can't just really recast him and act like it didn't happen. So I think you do have to sort of kill him or send him off, which I think we potentially will see. And I think it makes whoever does the deed, it makes it so irredeemable that this person will become the next Josh Brolin's character. How am I blanking on his name?
Thanos.
Good gosh, that was total brain fart. Thanos. Like how do you forget Thanos? But no, it'll become that sort of magnitude, right? Where you're like, gosh, I hate this person. No matter what they do, it's going to be hard to replace them. But I like the idea of M'Baku, is like you said too, because M'Baku stepped back and he also almost feels like he's like a cousin or like a family member, a relative who
it's so like a brother from another mother. That's basically what
exactly. And so for I think it helps the family too, where they go, you're the next strongest one. You challenged him. You've been here for us. You understand the perils of, you can't be too bad, too good.
Just like they did in Black Panther 1. They went to M'Baku.
Exactly. And I think the director's producer probably like, oh, you got to be kidding me, because it's like, literally, the plot of 1 is perfect to replace T'Challa, but you can't do that after you just did it. Otherwise, it's like, so exactly. the way they're gonna have to balance that is weird. But what I will say is this: if they choose not to replace him, I think that's fine. But what I would love to see is if we enter another universe or something, we get this sort of different dimension to T'Challa, right? Sort of like the Spider-Mans. We saw there's different versions of that. We've seen different versions of other characters. We've seen different Professor X's, right? So I think it's total like the world that we set up because of Loki, because of Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, Spider-Man. I think that they've opened the floodgates with this thing where it can happen. Now, what I will say is this: I know a lot of people say, "What about Michael B. Jordan?" I do think Michael B. Jordan's character could potentially work, right? But what we saw in What If is that he's going to be bad regardless, even if you give him the throne. And I think that, and that might not be true.
But I wouldn't even say bad. He'd be selfish. He's a very self-oriented. He's going to fall into that anti-hero category, similar to Deadpool, in the sense of like, Deadpool is always really looking out for himself, right? He might not be bad per se, and he does bad things to bad people, but Killmonger will always be looking out for his self-interest first, no matter what.
And what we've seen from Doctor Strange is that there are some universes where, 1, there's only one version of people, and 2, that some people, no matter how many times you pull, how many times you grab, they will always end up doing the same actions. Is that meeting point, right? And so I think Michael B. Jordan doesn't work. I would like to see, though, this character continue, and I think that they should find a way to do that. And I think the best way to where it's clean is you let Black Panther go. He's done. You maybe not even give it to M'Baku, but he's still the king. He's not Black Panther, but he's the king of Wakanda, or even Shuri, or maybe the family, or they have some sort of democracy, right? And then you bring Black Panther back from a different universe, because I just imagine this scenario, right, where he goes, wait, where's your Black Panther? It's like, our Black Panther isn't with us anymore, or something. And then you're like, this is ours. And then someone walks in and you're like, what? Because I think you can accept a different version from a different universe, because you're like, okay, that is Black Panther. It's not ours, but I can accept it, right? Sort of like the Spider-Man.
100%. But the only issue with that, right? And this is why I put a lot of thought into my theory, because I try to make sure it can fit within the universe without creating plot holes. And more so helps tie up some plot holes too, right? So that's where my theory lands. I think a problem with pulling a T'Challa from another universe is they've shown, regardless, the longer you step and influence another universe, the more likely incursions can happen, because that T'Challa is from a different universe. So by him being in that new universe, it's pulling those worlds together to create an incursion. So I really don't think you can go that road, given the fact that Doctor Strange, especially at the end, is leaning heavily on incursions being a big problem, as well as this leading to Secret Wars, right? So I don't think your solution to the Black Panther problem is that, unless you're trying to use that to continue pushing towards Secret Wars.
So that's what I was going to say. I was going to say, I think if you almost let it happen, that way it can keep pushing it and stretching, and then that's how you get this interdimensional universe. Like, all right, this is falling apart. Now, we also don't know fully what the rules of this insurgent are quite yet. We just know that it's bad. We don't want it to happen. You can't be in the same universe. We don't know if that means you can take that person out of that universe, or if the person's no longer there, or maybe, T'Challa's spirit is in the ancestral plane, so maybe it doesn't count. Like, there's all these like sort of like new rules that we're playing with. And I think that's why right now it's funny, because I think some people are really frustrated with Marvel, and because we're at this development point. But excuse me. But I think this is actually one of the better parts right now, because we're getting so much new stuff to play with. And right now we're getting, like, these aren't typical superhero stories now. Like, now we're getting into sci-fi and fantasy and Greek mythology, right? So I think now this is the perfect time to sort of like push the boundaries a little bit. If they don't replace him now, then he can't come back. Like, there is no more Black Panther. And I think, to your point, it's just way too early. It's way too early to let go of that character.
Totally.
All right, so let's discuss, what do you think the future of this character in Phase 5 will be? What do you think? How do you think this will end? How will it lead into Fantastic Four or Blade? Right off the bat, I've been teasing this the whole time. I think that Doctor Doom is going to play a large part in the MCU. I think we're all sort of thinking about Doctor Doom in relation to the Fantastic Four, because, we've seen these two failed franchises try to happen. We've seen the comics, we've seen the stories, we've seen the animation, right? But I think what some of us are forgetting is that Doctor Doom, sort of like Thanos or King, has played this role where it's him versus the Avengers. And I think the perfect way, this is my big prediction, is you have Doctor Doom somehow instigate Neymar, or Doctor Doom is the one to kill Black Panther off. Because to me, if you set it off that way, where Black Panther dies, it was Doom, and you just know everyone's going to be furious. Maybe they have a cameo, almost like an Endgame cameo, where it's like everyone's at this funeral and they're just pissed. Doctor Doom becomes that guy, like instantly becomes that guy. And that leads into Fantastic Four. And we've already seen hints of it, right? And in episode 3 of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, they mentioned his home country, Latvia. We know that Doctor Doom has a connection to to Wakanda in the comics, because he tried to get the vibranium and take over multiple times over the last few decades. So my big prediction, I think Doctor Doom will somehow play a player. And if he doesn't, I think he's instigating Neymar and ultimately becomes this huge threat for the MCU. I do not believe Doctor Doom is going to be a Fantastic Four villain. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, on Doctor Doom, I think Doctor Doom has been not done right 2 times, right? It's definitely been given a disservice, and Doctor Doom is not the type of person or villain at that matter where you're just offing him after one movie, like they really have been doing, right? He is meant to be, in a sense, bigger than Thanos, right? You see in the comics, Thanos tried to threaten him, and Doom just rips out his heart and his, or more so his spine and skull and everything. That's right. Like Doom is meant, and I think something to never lose sight of is, who is the man in charge of all this? Kevin Feige. And Kevin Feige for years has been talking about how he wanted to get his hands on the Fantastic Four and Doom specifically. Yeah. So when you think of Doom, he's going to be used in a sense, I think, even bigger than Kang. I think Kang is going to be the distraction for a lot of the grunt work and hard work that's being done within phase 4 and 5 and leading to Secret Wars. But Doom is secretly waiting in the background, watching all these pieces move. He might move a pawn here or there, some of these things other ways, but eventually you're going to see him start moving across the board, and you're going to feel those tremors because when Doom moves, Doom makes noise, right? So I think it's hard for me to say where he comes in, how he comes in. I know that when he comes in, you're already starting to see some signs of it. He's going to be a much larger role than even Thanos was in Infinity Saga, right? So I think you're only going to get bits and pieces of him in phase 4. I think phase 5, or really you're only get teases at him in phase 4. I think at the end of phase 4, when they have Fantastic Four, they're going to kind of open that door, so to speak, kind of like they did in Loki with Kang, right? But phase 5 is when you're going to start seeing more of those pawns move. But I don't really think you're going to start seeing him pop off until phase 6, because I think they have phase 5 really lined up for Kang at this point.
So I'm glad you mentioned Kang, because this has been another thing that I have not seen anyone talk about is Dr. Doom in some of these comics is actually a future version of Kang, which would also make sense why if we focus so much on this specific Kang, because that's what Kang does very well. If you read some of these comics, he sends these versions of himself out there to do his dirty work, and like all the focus is pinpoint on that moment. Meanwhile, he's just playing the puppeteer, like King the Conqueror. A lot of times, actually, like I was just reading one the other day, he isn't physically fighting. He's sending everyone else. He's like, I don't have time for this, like, mortal fighting and stuff. And he's sending other people out. So I think if you have Dr. Doom tied into Kang, or he's from the future, and as we saw with Reed Richards and Multiverse of Madness, that's clearly set in the future, and it would make perfect sense to have that sort of connection there as well with the Fantastic Four. Now, we don't know that, obviously. This is just a big prediction, but I'm right there with you, Corey. I think we're completely underestimating this character, and I think that we've been looking, who's the next Thanos, who's the next Eternal that we have to worry about. I think it's been in front of our faces the whole time, and as you said, Feige loves the Fantastic Four, and there's just honestly, I think that Fantastic Four movie is going to be very introductory. They might fight Doom, he might be involved. But I really think there might be someone else involved, just so that we can get an introduction to these characters. But ultimately, I think you're spot on there, brother. All right, so before we head out, you got any last things about the future of the MCU?
Yeah, I think for the future of the MCU, we're leading towards Secret Wars. I think there's no doubt about it. I think a lot of it is going to be...
Quick, tell our audience what Secret Wars is.
Secret Wars pretty much is this situation where the multiverse begins to break down, right? And similar to if you've watched Doctor Strange, there's these incursions where worlds have to battle each other. And eventually it gets to a point where somebody like Doctor Doom ends up creating this world called Battle World. And it's pieces of all these different universes and worlds. And they're taking different teams, such as, hypothetically speaking, we're not saying this is what's going to happen, right? But you'll take the first phases 1, 2, and 3 Avengers, like Tony Stark, Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, guys like that, into this battle world. You'll take the X-Men from Fox into this battle world. You'll take Fantastic Four, everything that you could possibly think of, right? They will bring them into this world, and they will basically be fighting all these different characters from all these different universes. I think this is what Marvel is trying to lead to, because you think of Endgame, you think of Infinity War, and that whole Infinity Saga, you have to one-up it, right? If you don't one-up it, people are falling off, right? So how do you one-up the Infinity Saga, one of the most well-known comic strips of all time, with another one that everybody loves?
I think Secret Wars is how you do it. And, we'll get into this at a future date, but I'm going to tease it right now. Once you're done with Secret Wars, and I'm talking phase 7, phase 8, I can guarantee we're gonna get DC versus Marvel. Guarantee it. Guarantee it.
I think that day will come when Marvel is like, you know what?
Let's help these guys out.
Let's help these guys out a little bit. Let's boost the comic book community up a little
right,
bit.
Yeah.
Right?
Marvel's gonna do a little charity work.
I think that is something that's further on down the line when nothing can really be done anymore. I think it was Discovery who just bought out Warner Brothers is going to give their crack at doing the multiverse, right? I think the head there specifically is determined to make the DC universe a lot better and has named characters, I think, like Wonder Woman, Superman, and even Batman sometimes in the context of their larger universe have not been leveraged the proper way. And I think they're very focused on coming back to the drawing board, really putting something together that can compete with the MCU. So it'll be interesting to see what they do there. That's been always my complaint, is the awful interconnection of their movies, right? That's what we live for in these MCU. That's why my theory leans on covering plot holes and continuing a continued story. Because I think that's where Marvel is trying to be. They're not trying to confuse you, especially when you get into this phase 4 when they're talking about a multiverse and things like that. It's already
be clear.
Topic. It's exactly. It's already confusing topics enough to some people. So confusing them with plot holes and things like that is not the way to keep people on board. So I think Marvel has it nice and locked up. And if I'm right, best believe Kevin Feige. Hit your boy. Yeah, I can, and I can guarantee you and I, we're gonna be at that premiere, brother. We're gonna be there. All right, when that day happens, at that point, what's next? The Circle Club gonna be blown up, man. But to your point, I remember when I left Multiverse of Madness, someone was like, "Wow, I can't believe that they killed Mr. Fantastic that easy." Like I thought he would have been like more down the line in the MCU. So I do think there are some people who don't even pick up on the fact quite yet that like these are different universes, that, you know, just because one character is done there. And one little like comment I hear that kind of annoys me is like, people will say, okay, well, if you can always bring people back, then what if? Like how does that have any stakes? Well, one, the version of that character that you know is never coming back. So that's different. Like, and that was my point with Black Panther is you can bring back Black Panther, but it's got to be a different version of that character. It's never going to be the same version, right? I will say to this, and for some context to people in the What If comics, and the What If comics are an example of Marvel comics doing a great job in exploring these audacious avenues, right? And they use it as an avenue to do these crazy stories, things that you would think would never happen, but they have admitted to What If being an avenue to do things that they thought were ridiculous, to test the audience's waters. So when you get into these What If shows, they're going to test some things, and you're starting. Proof is in the pudding. Captain Carter in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness is the first example of them going live action with some of the things that they're doing in What If. So don't always be shocked if one of those ideas slips through the cracks and does make live action, because that is the intention of What If. It's to push the boundaries, do something that you think would never happen, is contrary to the story, but see what you're interested in, because that's why they might bring it in. So
I think so. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today's video. Let us know what some of your Black Panther 2 predictions, theories. Do you think they're going to replace Black Panther? Who should they replace him? Should they not? And then just general, with all this beautiful, interesting stuff going on right now with the MCU, what are some of your thoughts there? Make sure you comment. Go check out Corey over on What's Next, because that's where we're going to do a lot of our Marvel breakdowns and coverage. And make sure you check out the podcast. If you're listening through audio, thank you so much. Go check out the YouTube channel. And we'll see you guys next time in the next video, because I believe next we have our Star Wars stuff coming. So that's going to be very exciting. See you, Corey. Thanks for showing